did you become an ingrate?
You're...
You would have none of this if it wasn't for me.
You know what? Okay, you want to name one thing you ever taught me beside, hey, Liza, get your ass hitched young and squeeze out a kid so he won't leave you. Name one thing you ever did for me. One.
I made you a survivor.
I survived you, Mom. I'm here because of me.
So there was a comment under my video about how Black mothers do not prepare their daughters for marriage. And there was a person that says, there's so much of the problem, can you get a solution? You sure can. I got you. Now, this is a solution to mothers not preparing their children for marriage. Now, before we can get to the actual solution, we have to go over a lot of the comments were confused as how independence is a negative thing or if it's a positive thing. So before we can move any further, we first have to understand these words, the definition and their meaning when it comes to this situation. So this is going to be the reason why a lot of this does not make sense to you, because you guys don't understand definitions and words. So we're going to go over that before we can get to the solution. So first, survival. Survival mode is the cause. A lot of these mothers are in survival mode, which equals dysfunction. Dysfunction equals altering the norm, ignorance. So what does this mean? This means that if people are in their dysfunctional state, they are going to alter the norm. They're going to require that the rest of the world change their view to fit their dysfunction. For example, a lot of people in the comments were saying, well, I disagree, or this isn't true because in my household, blah, blah, blah. Your household does not speak for everyone. That's dysfunctional for you to even put that comment there. So mothers have changed the word independent into their own dysfunctional definition. They're teaching independence from the ignorance of the definition. They don't know what independent really means, so they're teaching it to you from a dysfunctional place. All right. So what does this mean? Independent means to become self-sufficient as an adult, free from control. So when you guys are saying my mother taught me to be independent, she did not teach you to become self-sufficient as an adult and free from control. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce a new word into your vocabulary so that all of this makes sense. The word of today is dependent and codependent. What is dependent? Dependent is relying fully on others. So this is why when you do taxes, you put your children down as a dependent because they are fully relying on you for survival. Codependent is emotionally relying on others for approval, identity, or sense of worth. This is enmeshment. So while you are thinking that your mother raised you to be independent, she actually raised you to be codependent. Congratulations, you're an adult child.
Did you move back in with your mom during the pandemic? Are you looking to be more codependent with her than ever before? Come on!
Ah! Where is my daughter?
I'm right here.
Oh, I'm sad.
Well, now I'm sad.
Well, good.
Mom, I have a date tonight.
Oh, that's great. But he'll never love you like I do. He'll struggle with intimacy till you die.
I'll never leave you, I promise.
That's okay. I really don't want you here. What? Just kidding. Don't go!
Codependent. It's not just a word, it's a lifestyle.
The parents are using this independent word to manipulate roles to switch from you depending on her to her depending on you, making you codependent, which makes you an adult child, which does not qualify you for marriage. I know that's a lot. I'm slow it down. All right. So raising your child to be independent is fine. That's a good thing because you're becoming self-sufficient. That's needed to be an adult. Self-sufficient is a full adult. This is a person who has the ability to provide for yourself food, money, skills, stability, housing, resources, and emotional regulation. The problem is that, especially in the Black community, a lot of adults are not self-sufficient. They are relying on either their mothers or other people, grandmothers, aunties, sisters, brothers, whoever, for these items here, when they should be giving that to themselves. So they're not a full adult. So the reason that you cannot qualify for marriage is because you're not a self-sufficient adult. Self-sufficient adults are able to become interdependent. What is interdependent? Interdependent is two whole, self-sufficient people choosing to rely on one another. This is a healthy unity. But wait a minute. Didn't any of you guys' mothers tell you that independence is not to rely on a man, not to trust people, not to rely on friends? And that's not how society works. We are social creatures. We need each other. Men need women, women need men, and we all need to be in groups within society. So if you're not independent, self-sufficient, you cannot be interdependent with anyone else, whether it is the two people in a relationship, whether it's friendship, or it's a social group. You can't be a part of something if you can't trust or rely on anyone, because that is a healthy unity. The reason that you're not able to be self-sufficient is because you were taught to be independent in the wrong definition of the word. The words were changed for independence to mean codependent and enmeshment. it no longer means becoming self-sufficient, or we would have a lot more self-sufficient people within the community that are adults. But we all know so many adult children. Because of dysfunction, they're altering the norm of what these terms mean. Wife and husband is not a negative thing. A wife is an honorable role. A wife is an equal partner in governance, so she has authority. That's a high position. She's a bearer of responsibilities and legacy. She's an emotional and social leader. She helps the family thrive socially, emotionally, and spiritually, creating multiple self-sufficient people. So when I see a lot of people in the comments saying, well, it's not that important to be a wife. It's more important to be independent than it is to be a wife, because wife is nothing but servitude. That's what you were taught. You were taught from your survival and dysfunction from your mother that independence was better than being a wife. Not that a wife is everything and that it matters, but you're changing the definition of what it is. It's not. This is what poverty does. A poverty mindset will change the meaning of a word to fit their world. Remember, they're changing the norm to fit the dysfunction. So we're changing what a wife and husband is to the negative. So wife becomes a submission and servant, and husband is dominance and presence. So we're thinking that a wife has to be submissive and she's a servant, when that's not true at all. She's in a position of authority. She has a lot of high positions and abilities within the family and the community. There's nothing negative about this role. And then as a servant, a wife has never been a servant. This is a poor man's thing. This is a poverty, dysfunctional thing that a wife is a servant. A servant is a servant. If you were to go to monarch times, there's a wife, there's the queen, there's the woman. She's not, doing dishes in the back. That's not what her role is. Her role is to sit on the throne next to the king and give out authority and decisions and decide what goes on within the kingdom or the community. That's a wife. You're describing a servant. A servant is a servant. You can hire help. If you need somebody to help you around the house, there's cleaning services, there's chefs, there's so many things. And this stuff is affordable today. This used to be you had to be wealthy to have this stuff. You can get people to assist you with your duties in the home. And as for a husband, the mother uses her dysfunction to change the word to make her think that a husband is dominant in his presence. So she thinks, oh, just as long as you control women, dominate them, bully them, that's what makes you a man, that's what makes you a husband. And that's not what that is. He's a leader. He has structure and discipline, and he builds. The men that she creates by telling them that they can be codependent in a mesh relationship where he's her surrogate husband, he has no authority, he has no power, no skills or anything. He's just thinking he can bully somebody into the role of husband. And then as for presence, mommy told you all you had to do was just be there and be cute, and that was good enough. But it's not. You just being in the house is not enough. You actually have to contribute emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually. You actually have a duty to do. You just being there is not enough. So she'll tell you that a woman should take you as is, and you being there should be enough. So you shouldn't have to do all that work. You shouldn't have to put all that mental load in. You shouldn't have to do this, and you shouldn't have to do that. And this is why there's no husbands. This program is brought to you by viewers like you. So just like PBS, I'm not too proud to beg. So please leave your donations in the Cash App at Ms. Dixon21, and I will be happy to give you more content. For those who donate $10 or more, along with their email address, will get the solution worksheets for free.
I guess I'm just the worst mom ever then, and I can't get anything right. Is your child trying to go no contact with you? Here are some ways that you can make them regret that decision and change their mind. Always start with a guilt trip. After everything I've done for you. If your child tries to hold you accountable for something that you did in fact do, remember, you're the real victim here. Well, I didn't have it so easy either. One to always keep in your tool belt is a derogatory statement about their other parent. You're just like your father. This will ensure that you can keep them in check and the other parent. Even though they were the child and you were the adult in that situation, kids can hurt their parents too. Hurt goes both ways. Remember, nothing you ever did was your fault. It was just a result of your child's behavior. Well, I'm sorry you remember it that way. And you can always remind them, you can disappear from their life too. Make sure it's very emotionally charged. Emotions show power. Fine, I guess you'd just be better off without me. And always remember the 3 G's. Gaslight, gatekeep, generational trauma.
Projected her fears into you, teaching you not to trust or rely on anyone but her. Now you're lonely. No man, no friends. Why do I say this? Because you can't attract the man because you don't trust them and you're not willing to rely on them, which is a big part of a relationship. Then you can't attract any friends because you don't get along with girls. Your mom didn't teach you how to play well with other girls. So now you're a hater. You're a backstabbing heifer and you are negative Nancy all the time, and nobody wants to be friends with that. I also wanted to give you a visual to kind of show that you can be independent and self-sufficient. You also can be dependent and self-sufficient as well, and still lead to being interdependent. So let's start with independent. So when you guys are saying that your mother's raised you to be independent, that means she raised you to be independent, which means free from control, including her control, and self-sufficient, which means you're a full adult. That means you're an island. That means you're a person that doesn't have anybody to answer to. You make your own decisions, your own choices. You're able to sustain yourself with your own food, money, and skills. You are your own person. You're completely independent, okay? Then we have a person over here who is dependent, but they're also self-sufficient. So what does that mean? That means that they have a group of people, organization around them. So it can be a family, a community, or an organization. And they're dependent on that group. So say, for example, this person comes from a wealthy family and their family says that you have to marry a specific type of person. That means they're dependent on that family if they want to receive that inheritance. So even though they would like to make their own decisions and be independent and make their own choices about who they marry, they're dependent on finding someone that meets the criteria of their family, their organization, or their community. However, this person is also self-sufficient, which means they have their own job, they have their own home, they take care of themselves, they have their own money, resources, they regulate their own emotions. They are a full-grown adult, but they do depend on their community, family, or organization to dictate who they will marry. And then we come over here to what's really going on within the community, in the Black community. You're not being raised to be independent. You're being raised to be codependent, which turns you into an adult child and eventually leads to social outcast. So basically, you're not independent. You're being raised to be an emotional servant. Codependent, you can be dependent on your parents for survival, for emotional support, for comfort, for easing your emotional struggles, identity, sense of worth. Everything will come from someone outside of yourself. So you're codependent. And this is why we have so many adult children in the community that don't want to take on families, that don't want to help or give back. And after a certain age, it's frowned upon to not give back to the community. It looks like something's wrong with you. It looks like you're missing something. It looks like you're not a person that people want around. And you'll eventually start to get pushed to the sidelines. So this is why it's important to know all these different words so you can become interdependent. Because even if you don't get married, you still may need to rely on and move into a group, organization. We're social creatures. We have to learn to be social. So if you're not capable of being a part of a social group, you're going to eventually be in social outcast. And that'll lead to more codependence because you're going to go back home to your mother and say, oh, the world doesn't accept me. And you're trying to figure out why. And it's because they didn't raise you to be independent. They raised you to be codependent.
Narcissistic parents, or not even parents, just like any adult that plays a major part in a kid's life, they can create kids with social problems because they don't model proper boundaries and they don't give the child the validation they need to develop their own sense of self. A lot of the time, a child's life when they have a narcissistic parent or caregiver is full of emotional abuse, possibly physical abuse, gaslighting, that's a major one, and a bunch of other just problematic behaviors that completely warp their sense of how relationships are supposed to work. These types of caregivers also heavily discourage, and by that I mean there will be hell to pay if the child even dares to have a boundary. And boundaries are yet another social skill that is necessary to have healthy relationships and to function in this world, especially as an adult. But what happens when you have a narcissistic parent is that you do not learn how relationships actually work, because what you're taught is other people's feelings come first at all times. The way to get along with people is to shut up and do what you're told. And I am always wrong. Or even if it's not the parents or caregiver that's doing the abusive behaviors directly, another major issue that I've seen is when a kid is getting mistreated by someone else. Maybe it could be a kid at school, or it could be even another adult in the family, especially in the family. And the parents or caregivers don't step in to protect them. Or worse, they gaslight them into thinking that they're the problem. They invalidate the kid. They're like, well, maybe Aunt Jackie felt like you were rude. You know, you're not very friendly to Aunt Jackie either, so maybe that's why she's cold to you. Or, they probably didn't mean that. You're probably just being sensitive. Now listen, I'm not saying that we can't give kids reality checks. We can and should, because sometimes, you know, nobody's always right. But if a child is getting mistreated and they come to you about it, and your response is invalidation, or you're still kikiing with adults that you know treat your child badly, grinds my fucking gears. And I'm gonna tell you why. I said that narcissistic parents create socially awkward kids, right? What happens when you're a kid and you have your reality doubted and invalidated over and over and over again, the message you learn is, I cannot trust myself. I am always wrong. As a rule, other people are right. And so I should defer to them. I should look to other people to tell me what's what. I should let other people tell me what I should believe. And I should not listen to my own feelings and interpretations of how people treat me. And when you're like that, when you think like that, that is so dangerous. Because what ends up happening is you become someone that doesn't read the room. And what's worse in that situation, because some people, they can't read the room because they genuinely don't know how. But some people, it's not that they can't read the room, it's that they don't have social intuition, it's that they don't trust what they're reading. Again, they have learned to distrust their instincts to the point that unless something smacks them in the face, they are not able to pick up on social cues. They gaslight themselves when people are passive aggressive with them, because that's the thing. A lot of the time, with people when people are being disrespectful to you or choosing to even bully or abuse you, a lot of the times they're going to start with subtle social cues or subtle forms of disrespect, little things, you know, a passive aggressive comment here, a little snark, a little condescension, or a nonverbal cue like an eye roll or a side eye, or just acting very lukewarm and standoffish. Those little things. And where somebody who trusts themselves and is able to read the room would pick that up and know, okay, this person is not someone that I need to be around, so I'm going to avoid them as much as I can. If you're the type that you have been gaslit your whole life and you don't trust yourself, you're going to walk right into the lion's den with a smile on your face. You're going to say, maybe I was taking it too personally when they rolled their eyes. Maybe they didn't mean anything by that snarky comment. It made me uncomfortable, but I can be too sensitive, so... And then what happens? So chances are you're not going to stand up for yourself. And when the person sees you don't stand up for themselves, or you don't stand up for yourself, they tend to escalate and escalate and escalate. And that's how the person that does not trust themselves to read situations can end up in abusive, humiliating, and even outright dangerous situations. Parents, it is dangerous to gaslight your children. You're putting them in danger for the rest of their lives when you invalidate their reality. Narcissistic or emotionally abusive, emotionally immature, whatever you want to call it, parents, they are robbing their kids of the ability to protect themselves. Because part of knowing how to protect yourself is knowing how to read the room and knowing how to assess the situation. When parents gaslight their kids to the point where they don't know up from down, and their kids develop social awkwardness from that, they are put at such a disadvantage compared to everybody else. It is psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes even physically damaging to not be able to figure out when people are harming you until maybe months or even years down the line. In fact, it's downright traumatizing. And I don't want to see any more people go through that. That's why I make the content I make, and it's also why I'm developing a course for socially awkward adults to learn social skills that they didn't learn as kids, so that they're better able to read the room and protect themselves, among, other things like being able to be confident and free in social situations.